Outdoor.tv. It is 8:59. Sometimes we're running that late, so it's 15 minutes early. You are watching the bumper. And behind that bumper, we have a studio waiting and ready. We are recording. We are streaming live on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Chat room waiting, guest waiting. Everything's ready. So, counting it down to Studio 17. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv, where we have a boatload of guests tonight. I'm your host, Coach Prasic. I'll be here throughout the event. I have a guest with me. This fur you see at the corner hopefully will remain right there. It's 100 pounds of German Shepherd. And he'll stay right there. Tonight's a very special night. If you're watching this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever, we're so glad you joined us, and we do invite you to join the fellowship going on right now live at pjnet.tv. You can watch the same program there. It's playing there, and you'll make some new friends. The sweetest fellowship on the internet, I promise you. Tonight, very special night. I have looked forward to this, well, since yesterday when we hatched the idea. Our associate producer, Sunbelt Girl Barbara, mentioned that it would be nice to get an update on Ben's speaking engagement. Now, Ben's with us later on, a couple weeks, or in the future. He's on every month. But we didn't want to have too much time pass by. And I thought, so I added to it. I said, I think Cynthia Mendenhall had something to do with this event. So what we decided to do, it's kind of a rare occasion, but we hope to do it more often, that we have the tandem, the team, Cynthia Mendenhall right there, and Ben Cooper up there. Now, so that you won't get them confused who is who, I'll put the names on the screen. That will help you out. And many of us are aware, those that are close to the PJNet family, are aware that over the weekend, Ben was invited to be the speaker at an event, and he'll be sharing more about that. But what you may not be aware is Ben wasn't just driving around and found it. He was purposed there. And Cynthia, I know that you were a part of the plan and the purpose. And hey, it's good to have you back. I hadn't seen you in a while, and it's lovely to have you with us. And I know that you will have some good stuff for us. You always do. What is your connection to what was the event? What's your connection to it?
Okay, so I have family that live up in northwestern Ohio, and each year they do a sportsman, like an outdoor expo. Mm-hmm. And it's just to bring people in, not only from their church, but from the community. And the church is called Shiloh Christian Union Church. It's a fairly decent-sized church, and this is just a way of outreach and ministering. The event is free, and they host a lot of speakers on all sorts of topics that I would never be interested in, like long-range rifle shooting and how to track a deer, the best bait for the lake. I don't know. So they do all these more hunter, fisher, outdoorsy kind of things. They serve lunch, and it's an all-day event. They cap it off with a keynote speaker that they bring in each year, and then do some really amazing door prizes. And again, everything's just free. There's the opportunity to donate if you'd like, but everything is just free. And so I have family that go to that church. I have a brother and his whole family, like his wife, his daughter, her husband, and then whom I call my surrogate granddaughter, because when you don't have grandchildren of your own, you just kind of go out and name them. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I knew about this event. But let me draw the line back a little bit further. So I met this guy on Facebook. As authors, we're trying to build our numbers, and so you just friend everyone or accept everyone. And you never know what you're going to get, right? But Ben and I connected, and I believe it was probably last summer. I was working remotely, and Ben was automatically different because he said, "Hey, I would like to pray for you. I have, 10 or 12 writers that I pray for at all times. I would love to pray for you. How can I pray for you?" And I just thought, wow, that's a little different than anything else. So we became prayer partners. Then Ben released his first children's book, the Created Critters with Wings. And so I was like, well, I mean, I've got to get some Christmas gifts for these little ones. And so I bought my great niece / surrogate granddaughter this book for Christmas. I also bought Ben's devotional. So during the course of the holidays, I dug that one out too, so these people from that northern church could see it. And immediately my sister-in-law said, "Do you think that he would be interested or available to come for our Outdoor Expo as a speaker?" And I said, well, I don't know very many authors that aren't willing to do whatever to get on a stage and have a book table. And so yeah, I connected them, and it's been like, so yeah, so that's how it happened. But I feel like there was a whole lot more, and I won't do a spoiler yet, okay, because when I look back, I just see nothing but the hand of God, and it's really reassuring and comforting to see that. But I'll save that.
Okay. Now, Cynthia, before we turn it over to Ben, you said they had this annual event, but you didn't mention how many years have they been doing it, or do you know?
Ben, was this their third or fourth, minus a COVID year?
This was their fourth year.
Okay.
I think they were able to do it last year, even right before COVID set in. So, and everything shut down. They did it February last year.
Okay.
It's a good time. Now, Ben, you have you have so many talents, but I remember talking to you offline, and you're really praying, seeking God's purpose to open doors in public speaking. Is this something new to you, or is this just something that you're emphasizing now, and then suddenly you start praying about it? And oh, by the way, Ben, Cynthia, you mentioned that Ben is a prayer kind of guy. And I can assure you, before we go on the air, Ben prays for this program, and Ben also prays regularly for the PJNet mission. So, Ben, you're a man of prayer. Have you been praying for doors to open to speak publicly?
Probably for the last year and a half, yes, on a daily basis. And so it's part of my regular daily basis. I was kind of building some momentum. If you remember, a year ago in February, right before COVID hit, I spoke 8 times in 2 different events in 3 days. And it was hectic, but I kind of like and thrive on that kind of stuff. And so I was getting excited because I did a homeschool event that had 96 first through 5th graders, and I spoke 4 times at that. And then a pastor or a speaker, due to health reasons, was not able to do a men's retreat, and I was asked if I could just piggyback right on that. So I was already an hour and a half away from home, and both events were within a half hour of each other. So it was just like this past weekend. I actually spoke 5 different times in a 24-hour period. So the first time I spoke was Saturday at 11 o'clock, and I was leaving Shiloh Church Sunday at 11 o'clock, and I had spoken 5 times. And so God opens that up. You just have to go back into your life and realize, how can somebody do that? But even all the way back in college days, God prepared me to be able to do that on a whim. Even like when I get a message from Barbara this morning that says, would you be willing to do PJNet tonight? And sure, why not? That's just the way I roll. So praying. I'm always praying for an opportunity, not just to speak, to hear my own words speak, and Cindy is a speaker as well, and we really want to get the word of God out and want to get the message that God has placed in us out. So that's the desire.
Well, your prayer journey for public speaking could not have been more ill-timed, because just as God puts this on your heart, COVID probably a lot of doors may have closed, but thank God they're opening again. And did you also, a lot of times when they have these events, they'll give a door prize type thing for who traveled the farthest to get there. So did you qualify for that?
No, I didn't qualify for any of the door prizes because I didn't fill out the card. I think Cindy qualified for a door prize and she didn't win anything. I think that's correct, but they had some really nice door prizes. I thought I was going to win the platform that I was standing on, but that wasn't the. There's been some pictures floating around, and I have to say that what makes any event even special, even more special than that, is for Cindy to drive 3.5 hours. I didn't know Ohio you could drive that long, but she went from one corner to the opposite corner, basically, and drove 3.5 hours. I drove 3.5 hours from my parents' place in Western PA, but I didn't go there to win a door prize, but some people might have, because they had 2 fishing trips in Canada that was the grand prize. But every child under 13 got a door prize, and almost every adult got a door prize. So that was extra special. And I just to make it lighthearted, it's kind of like a soup kitchen. You got to listen to the keynote speaker before you can get your door prize. And that's how, and you got to be present. I think you had present to be there. So there were some people that were there and could not stay later in the day, and people coming and going. The blessing that I see, Josephine Massaro and Dominic, her husband, came from Indiana, and it was just a little over an hour drive for them. And just a pleasure to be able to finally meet Joe and Dom in person, finally meet Cindy in person. I noticed her coming in. I walked over, hey, Cindy. And our PJNet family find other ways to meet other than writing conferences or online here. So it's nice to meet those people that we call our family face to face.
Now, Cynthia, you drove some 3.5 hours from one end of Ohio to the other, and that was worth it. Now, tell us more about the individual venues. They surely that many people didn't show up to hear Ben speak, and who hatched the idea? Don't they have a trailer or a stage of some kind that would be more conventional than the platform that Ben used for public speaking?
Okay, I think you just asked me like 3 questions.
Right. Tell us about the individual venues. We'll take this one at a time.
Okay, all right. So there was a very a large tent set up outside, and then some smaller tents to accommodate the speakers. They have a detached older fellowship hall, and that was used for all kinds of fun kids events. Like, so you could just kind of pop your kids in there if you wanted, and it was just like Bible school on steroids. Mm-hmm. And then Ben spoke during the day in the sanctuary, and then they have a brand new like fellowship or hall, or like I don't know, like family life center. And that was kind of a good gathering place. There were vendors set up there. Ben had his book table in that room. That's where they served lunch. And it was just kind of a good meeting spot as well. So yeah, there were just all kinds of things going on all day. Each speaker was scheduled to speak 45 minutes, and then there would be a 15-minute switch to get to the next at the top of the hour. the next speaker. And they rotated them very nicely, and there were all kind of things on the schedule.
So they had vendors there. Now, you happen to be a published author. Did you happen to have a few of your books available for those who might want to spunkify their life a little bit?
I did not. I was there to support Ben. Again, this is maybe not my target audience. not that we all can't use a little spunkifying, but yeah. I did not. I just soaked up the day and enjoyed myself.
Now, this kind of sounds like a testosterone-laced event. So here you are amongst all of these men. Did you feel maybe just a little out of place?
There were more women there than I expected. So
Two?
I didn't stand out. Yeah. But yeah, my sister-in-law was there, my niece was there, so there were a lot of women just around, and interested. So, I mean, we don't want to,
One of the things,
stereotype that as only men or hunters or shooters or fisher people.
Mm-hmm.
Coach, one of the things that was interesting, of course, I was speaking a couple different things of the sessions, but whenever I got to go outside, some of the Ohio Natural Resources or Ohio Game Commission, I don't know exactly what they call them.
We used to call them game wardens.
Well, this was the official, but they had a trailer that kids could actually shoot archery, mm-hmm. and the arrows wouldn't glance off because they're shooting into the trailer and shooting at targets, which was neat. And they had a lot of different activities for outside, and as I drove, and I'm sure as Cindy drove, the weather forecast was kind of sketchy. Mm-hmm. Like we should have had storms, and we didn't. The weather held off and was great for an outside venue when radar kind of the day before, the morning before, said chance of some pretty severe storms. And when I asked the person that invited me to come speak, that was kind of my liaison, Craig Bonner, I asked him afterwards, I said, so how many people were church members and how many people were community people? And he said about 50-50.
Wow.
They expected and had fish galore for twice the number of people that was there. But I think COVID kind of still restricts people. And a Saturday in June, when I drove and left and went with Randy and Jenny, I think we passed maybe one wedding photo shoot and then a wedding reception. So Saturdays in June already are built up with other things to do. But everything that needed to be done was done flawlessly from my eyes. The church was well ready and well prepared, and the weather, God allowed the weather to hold off enough for that event. They cooked fish. It was excellent fish. I think Cindy's brother was one of the fishermen cooking, doing some cooking. They had something that, what's that?
He was a fryer.
Fries. Yeah. Oh, he was one of the fryers. And not like Friar Tuck, but they had French fries. They had fish, more than enough for the people. And it just worked out extremely well. You can tell that it was well organized. After 2 or 3 years, the fourth event really starts coming together really well. And plenty of people, a lot of churches, they have 10% of the people do 90 or 100% of the work. And I think there was a good showing of the church.
Cynthia, you mentioned that this church is doing this in an effort to reach out to the community. And it seems like this event appeals mostly to sportsmen, sports folk. Okay. Why is it that we find ourselves as a church needing to reach out in this way, because have we maybe alienated ourselves from are people leaving the church and we need to reach out to bring them back, and if so, why?
I don't know. I guess I would think that there's just always been a certain percentage of people who are unchurched or maybe just disassociated from the church for one reason or another. And events like this feel less threatening than coming for a service. You come for a service, sometimes you don't even really know what you're getting into, but I can come and watch someone carve wood and someone teach us how to cook over a campfire. And, that just doesn't seem real threatening. And it wasn't. And it wasn't a real God-ridden thing until that keynote. But to get the prize, have access to the prizes, you had to, sit through the keynote. And so I think, it's just, I just think it's a very neat and interesting way to bring people in that feels less threatening than a 7:00 p.m. or a 10 a.m. service.
And how many speakers was Ben the only speaker, or were there others?
Oh goodness. There was a whole little booklet of schedule. So there were presenters all day. I think probably like 4 or 5 presenters every hour that you could choose from. And
I wonder what the other people talked about.
Well, they were just staying in their lane. So there was a fisherman there who had actually caught the 450 pounds of lake walleye and donated it. So he was talking about fishing and, the best techniques or the best bait or the tools that you would use. And so everyone had their own niche. Once in the morning, Ben spoke about birds of prey. And then in the afternoon, he spoke about beekeeping. And so everyone just kind of had their own little specialty, and that's why they were on the schedule.
Well, next year, when you need a keynote speaker, I know an individual that has a powerful and dynamic message entitled "The Hooks Are Hidden in the Bait." Do y'all cook hush puppies up there?
No.
And
That's
people came anyway?
Thing.
What?
That's a very Southern thing.
The hush puppies actually, Ben, you and I were talking about, grease and various oils to cook in, but the hush puppies clean. They actually clarify the particulate matter. And they're good with jalapenos too, by the way. So, Ben, tell us about the message that you delivered. And I think you had some object lessons, or I saw some pictures that appeared to be object lessons.
Those were in the sessions. So I used some turkey feathers that I kind of arranged to make it look like the wing feathers. Well, they were the wing feathers, talking about God's natural pattern of how keeping birds in balance so they can fly, and then what happens when you have a damaged wing, and talking about the soaring hawks. I love to watch the soaring hawks just catching thermals and never beating their wings at all. It takes strength and longevity and patience to wait for the right thermals without beating the wing. But we have hawks and buzzards and all kinds of soaring birds here that I enjoy. But just to get back to your other question, they had a big tent there, and just in the big tent, they had 7 different locations, and they had speakers almost every hour for every location. And so there's people moving around, and some of the hubs were the kitchen, because once the fish started showing up, people started showing up. But just in that large tent, they had reloading, they had getting the most out of your trail camera, they had reloading again, and then long range rifle shooting. they had the presenter, as Cindy said, the guy that caught the walleye. And then at 3 o'clock or shortly thereafter, it was the keynote speaker, which was me. And Craig decided, instead of just having a podium, he works for Ohio Fisheries, I think, and he pulled in a boat, and I had to crawl up a step ladder to get into the boat. And I actually had a set of antlers, and that was a prop that I used to talk about looking at antlers, the deer losing, the males losing their antlers. And I paralleled that to us as Christian believers at the rewards that we get, the crowns. Just like a buck, we don't keep them. He doesn't keep his antlers. He loses them. We give them and lay them back at the feet of Jesus, just like the buck loses them. And because we didn't really earn them, because God blessed us with them if we were obedient to follow after him. And so didn't know how, and Cynthia might understand this better. They didn't explain. They had these cards in their packets, and they had pens, and they had to check off whether they didn't want to go out of the country to be part of the options to go. Some people might not want to leave the country to go on a fishing trip. So you check a box or not check a box. And one of the boxes was if they responded to the message that was brought with the keynote speaker. Basically, if they responded with salvation, and it had their names, had their information, maybe phone numbers, address. I didn't see a card. So now the church has an opportunity to follow up with those people. A lot of times you can have a great event, but if you have no way to get back to them, you just leave them high and dry and leave them on their own. But I didn't know anything of the results. I guess some of the people, the organizers, went back, gathered those cards, and Saturday night looked through them and saw that several people had checked the box that they accepted the Lord, which that just even adds icing on the cake, if you will, for the event. To go out there, there wasn't any traffic. Of course, I left before 6 o'clock in the morning on the Ohio Turnpike, but there wasn't really much traffic. There wasn't much traffic coming back on Sunday. The weather held out, and for whatever reason, God allowed me, using Cindy, using other people, using Craig Bonner, just to allow that all to work out for his good and his glory.
Amen.
I met some wonderful people. I already knew Cindy, I already knew Josephine and Dom, but didn't get to meet them in person. But the other people, the people behind the scenes of the friars, the French friar, I actually then later found out that that's where I would be staying with over the evening for Sunday. And they were dairy farmers. They had quit dairy farming. We had so much in common, and to sit in their lovely home and be welcomed. We talked till 10 o'clock, and we were all tired, and we got up and talked some more over breakfast, and then it was time to go to church. But just a blessing to be. I was a little bit nervous because partway through the day, the person that was my liaison, Craig Bonner, came to me and he said, "The pastor isn't feeling well."
So
that's how he started it. And I'm thinking, okay, he's going to ask me to fill in for 2 services. But he said, could I speak, give me an opportunity to speak during both services. And I was also doing a Sunday school class as well. And I guess I kind of shot out a message to Cindy yesterday, I believe, or maybe Sunday night yesterday. As speakers, people want to know, how did it go? Mm-hmm. And as speakers, you don't really know. My canned answer is, ask somebody that sat through it.
Right.
Let their evaluation. And I don't know if Shiloh Church will get back and say, here's an evaluation. Cindy had some connections connections with family there that had some that felt that the event went well. But a lot of times the speakers don't get feedback to know, is it what their expectations were, below their expectation, or did you blow it through the roof and hit a grand slam? That's things that speakers want to know. And I'll let Cynthia jump in
I
if
have
she
a
wants to.
question for Cynthia. And I'm afraid I don't think it's necessary to ask Ben because he knows everything. But Cynthia, you know what a game warden is, right? We call them game wardens.
Yes.
Okay. Well, why don't they call them game police? Why do they call them game wardens? Do you know?
In
Ben?
Maryland, I can step in Maryland, they call them police.
Really?
They are DNR police.
I don't expect you to know the answer to that, but I'm going to give you the answer, folks, because you could be on a game show one day, and this could be worth a lot of money to you. Wildlife is not private property. Okay, you may own the property, but the wildlife that's on it is not yours to do with as you wish. Wildlife is a ward of the state under the state's custody. So the state has wardens, caretaker of that. Cynthia, you have been involved in events such as women's retreats and things like that, and I'm just over the top, just glad to hear that a local church is doing events to reach out to the community. So the reason that I think that's so important, and I'm asking you because you've been involved in events that are maybe hosted at a church, but they're I'll use men's ministry as an example. The Promise Keeper Rally. Okay, it draws a lot of people. You have a lot of powerful energy, and the Holy Spirit. Man, I mean, just everything, and it's a wonderful thing. And I'm sure that you've been involved in women's retreats where perhaps you go to a secluded place, just to get off by yourselves, and it's a very powerful spiritual experience. But here's the problem. Amen gets said and everybody disperses. So I'm glad that Shiloh Church is, one, doing it as a church, not doing it somewhere else, and following up to find those people that have become disconnected perhaps, or whatever their circumstances may be. But what is your take on event-driven ministry?
Well, I think there's a good place for event-driven ministry. I don't think that we can rely, or an individual can rely on events sustaining them. And I've seen that happen. People who just have a real high moment when they're at the event, and then it's like a valley until the next event. And then, and so we can't, as individuals, rely on that. But I think that it actually is a really good way to reach out to the unchurched. Because like I said earlier, I think events, a lot of times, if they seem like they're about something completely different, then they're less threatening. Right. I think sometimes churches spend too much time and energy hosting events for the church and planning almost what seems like private party. Right. And I've seen that in my past with women's ministry years and years ago. Felt like everything that was done, there was a lot of things done, and it was really good and really well done. But it seemed to be like for the people that were already there. And so when you open up and be creative and do something beyond what we'd say would be normal, I think it attracts people who are not attracted otherwise.
Cynthia, some time ago, you and I were in a conversation. It was in the midst of the COVID pandemic, and you had a birthday. And you did something special on your birthday, and we said, we got to share that. And so would it be okay if you would share what happened and your plans on your past birthday? I won't say how many you've had. I'll leave that up to you. You've had 39 of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's actually part of the story. But Ben, you don't mind it, do you? If we kind of hijack. Uh, okay, so in December, just right before Christmas, I turned 60, and I just wanted it to be a big day, and I threw myself a party. And so I started telling people that they were invited to my party. I absolutely love breakfast. My birthday was on a Monday morning, the week of Christmas. So a lot of people would maybe be off work, and we were just going to go to breakfast, go out to breakfast. And I was just going to celebrate. But here was the catch, and this is why I started telling people 6 months in advance. It's going to cost you $60 to come to eat breakfast with me on my birthday. You get that look like, oh wow, okay, moneymaker.
Caviar.
What's going on, right? Yeah, it's like, okay, I might as well just ask for the gift, right? I would go on to explain. So what's going to happen is we're all going to have breakfast together. We're going to have a party. It's going to be like a lot of fun. And then your $60 is going to go toward the tip for the server. And so we ended up I had 12 people in, in a time when you weren't allowed to have that many people sitting together at a table in Ohio. And everyone brought $60. They didn't know that I had all the intentions in the world of buying their breakfast. So I bought everyone's breakfast, and the $60 from every single person went to bless our server. We had a single server that day. She was excellent. And we just blessed her right before Christmas.
Right before
and
Christmas.
It was the coolest thing in the world. I was so happy. I had a feather boa and wild glasses, and my daughter brought a cake, and I mean, we just went all out party wise. But but in the end, it was all about blessing someone else at Christmas.
Well, we think immediately that the server, would be blessed, but sometimes I wonder who got the bigger blessing, the server or the people there, because and that close to Christmas, especially because, we just recently celebrated Father's Day, and these, what I call the days, Valentine's Day, the 4th of July, all these. Well, Christmas Day, we celebrate these. They're joyous occasions, and of course they should be, right? But when we do, we sometimes overlook or fail to be sensitive to the people who are going through a divorce, or have just lost a father, or maybe who had a bad experience with their father growing up. And we say, how great fatherhood is and all that. And sometimes we don't do it on purpose, but we wound people in our celebration, because not everybody. So you're all heart, Cynthia, and I appreciate you being a blessing. It's great to celebrate your birthday, but to make that such an enormous blessing for someone else, well, that's the kind of person you are, Cynthia. And it's just, we congratulate you. We're proud of you. And Ben, we'll give you the last word. We got to wrap it up soon.
Okay. Well, I did want to encourage, a lot of times there are other writers and speakers in the PJNet, chat room, or who may watch this later. And I just want to encourage you, because here's what I have found in my years at this. There are right ways to do it, and everyone's an expert, and they're going to tell you how to get yourself out there for speaking engagements, or how to market your book. And so it looks like these formulas where you're posting on Facebook X number of times a day, and you have to make sure that you hit something on Instagram on Tuesday at 10. And I mean, there's all of this, you're blogging, and you're, doing newsletters, and you're wearing yourself out. Listen, Ben didn't do any of that. God wanted Ben at this event. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't do that. He does his fair share of what he needs to do, but he was at this event because God wanted him there. I bought a Christmas gift, and that's what opened the door. I mean, that's all God. And so I think, sometimes we need to rely less on the experts. And I'm talking to myself too now. We need to rely less on all of those experts that know the perfect magic of getting yourself out there, and just rely on God, because he's got it all figured out anyway.
Yeah, he's actually the expert. The others are just posers. Yeah. Wrap it up.
One of the other things to add one of the other things to add what Cindy said is I'm a busy person, but if I crowd my schedule and fill every nook and cranny with something, what do I have left over to give God in my time? Time is the most important thing, and it's not selfish time, it's time to give. I used to tithe my vacation time when I was still working. If I got so many weeks, I tithed it, and that allowed me to save up, bank it, and go on mission trips and go someplace else and give that. Being retired doesn't mean I have 100% free time because I'm engaged with every. I spoke at Shiloh. I said Sunday. I said if you're a Cooper, you're 120% involved, or you're not involved at all. There isn't any in between.
There you go.
It's just in our DNA. It's the way we are.
Yeah, it's called
You're
testosterone.
all in. If you're playing poker, you're all in every hand.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not playing at all. And it's hard to scale back and leave those time open because we schedule ourselves to death.
Mm-hmm.
And leaving yourself open starts by praying, God, would you open doors for me to be able to speak for whoever, whatever you want to do. And God answers those prayers if we're faithful to follow through with what he wants us and being obedient. So, yeah, there was a time gap, but that's okay. It probably meant that I needed to grow in some areas. And I think in all intents and purposes, from Shiloh's standpoint, from the people that attended, from me being a speaker, other speakers, I think it was a great success. Might not have been the number of people that they wanted, but God had a few people there purposefully that needed to hear whatever it is that he laid on my heart to share. And so it was done just the way God wanted it.
Wonderful, Ben. Well, folks, this has been a very special evening. And Cynthia and Ben, thank you for sharing so generously with us of your time. You're an inspiration to us. We're proud of you. And we just love you. And thanks again for sharing.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Coach.
Well, folks, there's the view high atop the Eagle's Nest, the broadcast facilities here at pjnet.tv. And I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. The chat room is really, I can't wait to read the chat. I do that as soon as we get off the air. It's something I always look forward to it. Those of you there, I really appreciate your participation in this ministry. I really do. Now, before I leave, I always take an opportunity to challenge not only myself, but challenge you. It's two very simple questions. You don't have to answer anybody but yourself, maybe just between you and God. Here it goes. Question number 1. What is the boldest thing that you have ever done for Jesus Christ? Public speaking, maybe? Question number 2. When was that? Folks, the kingdom requires us. There is no plan B, that if we don't do it, God will dispatch angels to do it for us. That's not the plan. As Ben said, God is with us. We may have to get out of our comfort zone. We may have to be open to ideas when they arise. So, I hope that none of us will be satisfied with the answers to either of those two questions.